Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome back to An Insane Voice in the Night, where if you believe the types of things that this presenter is presenting in his presentation, stop it, and you believe the types of things that the rest of this audience believes, you'll be cast out, left without family and friends. Your wife or your husband will all of a sudden start treating you different. Your kids won't talk to you, which is a story of many of you. It happens to all of us. We all become cast outs. That job promotion you were promised at work will be coming, but it will be Upper Mongolia. So they'll say, we didn't tell you where you're getting the promotion, but it's Upper Mongolia. Good luck. I've been thinking a lot about the calendar recently. Haven't done any formal research on it. I don't do a lot of research anymore, like I've said many times recently. Where am I supposed to go? The Library of Congress. So the calendar, in terms of its holidays and its days off and its bank holidays, it's so carefully orchestrated. And again, another area where most of us would, if we take a step back, would see that it is, as all of society and culture is, and somehow planned by this thing we call not nilk, with almost nobody being in on it. That's the incredible nature of it. And of course, the people around us would vehemently disagree that, oh, here you guys go again. Everything's planned. Everything's a big conspiracy. Everything's sinister. But you'd say to that person, well, tell me, how did Halloween come about? And tell me about the date. Why is that on the calendar where it is? Or they'll be able to tell you a little bit of something about Thanksgiving. They'll recall something back from second grade. Isn't that when the settlers, what settlers? The settlers got with the Indians? You can't call them that. It was the Native Americans, and then they broke bread together. It doesn't matter what your fifth grade textbook told you about the origin of a certain holiday. The calendar, if you back up and look down at it, is completely artificial in terms of the placement of holidays, the backstory on how they came to be, like Halloween on the last day in October, or whatever you think Thanksgiving is, or whatever Saturnalia morphed into to become Christmas, or Martin Luther King Jr. Day, or whatever it may be. Labor Day just happens to be 9 months when a baby would be born off the first, but we'd be crazy conspiracy theorists for trying to tie those together. Matt, it's just about workers. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I go there? I'm so sorry. So in terms of the placement of a typical worker's days off, it's completely orchestrated, planned, and artificial. There you guys go again. Everything is a conspiracy. Then what would be the point? The point is obvious, dude. The point is obvious. It's the whole reality in society is structured, and this particular part of the insane presentation is about the calendar specifically, how it's just about getting what they call the human being through the years. What's that song? Reeling in the years, and they all blending together. Just, they know when the human or the typical worker is about to crack or throw things through a window, and then that holiday just comes at the right time, and then, oh, you have something to look forward to, that day off where you can watch your football. I don't care what some official source tells me about the origins of Halloween. It's artificial. It's also a Humpty Dumpty. We'll talk about that. It's two at the same time. It's Lou. They're all Lou's. They're nice and they're tough. They're artificial and Humpty Dumpties. I don't care about the origins of Halloween. It's so artificial and it's Humpty Dumpty. But I know there are various and slight differences amongst cultures too. Doesn't Mexico and Latin America do something a little bit different or on a different day but similar called Day of the Dead? I don't know. All I know is that damn Disney movie and its representation of it. I don't think they do regular Halloween. It's like what Jules said to Vincent Vega in the beginning of Pulp Fiction in the car. No, Vincent Vega says, you know the differences between Europe and America is? It's the little things. And Jules says, example, you can go into a movie theater in France and you can get a beer. I'm not talking to a paper cup. I'm talking about a glass of beer. You know what they put on French fries in Holland? What? Mayonnaise? They drown them in that shit. Ugh. Sorry. Look, the slight differences. Okay, the Day of the Dead in Mexico or whatever. It was also, wasn't it, one of the first scenes, one of those horrible Daniel Craig Bond movies? But it's still there. The general holiday is still there. It's just not milk customized for the different culture. And all these holidays and day off and Memorial Day and whatever they tell you it's supposed to be for, whatever patriotic thing you're supposed to be all excited about, it's just there artificially to get you through the year. So you can just keep going, so you don't crack, so you have that day off at a key time. And then, Labor Day, that's a day off, and then you got to go all the way to Thanksgiving, and some employers will give 2 days off back to back. Isn't that wonderful? Because it's on a Thursday, but that's a long time. What are we going to do? Throw this damn thing in, because most people have kids in the middle called Halloween. Well, they don't get a day off on that. Yeah, but it's exciting. It's something they can look forward to. It's a bridge to get them to their next day off that they need so they don't crack, and then they can go take pride in their kids running around getting that sugary treats and all that stuff. And so it's just a bridge, even though they don't get the day off. And there are these bridge holidays too, or at least bridge events on the calendar, and all of professional sports is orchestrated in the exact same way. When you step back, well, who's in on it, Matt? Who would be the counsel at the smoking room table that would know and plan all this? As we're seeing, maybe nobody. So, right, you're sane, Mr. Presenter. The calendar is orchestrated. It's all a big conspiracy. So the human being drifts through, reeling in the years, and then they all blend together. So somebody doesn't understand what they're supposed to do in life. But even like you could go and say to, who do you report to? George W. Bush. I report to Dick Cheney, of course. And then you could go to Dick Cheney and say, who do you report to? You don't think it's a regular president or prime minister, people above. And then even these other figures, well, that Henry Kissinger, who do you report to? Even the people at the top, I don't think they could tell you. I don't know who's in the know here. So let me get this straight, Mr. Insane Presenter. Nobody's in the know. You're even so far out there like Pluto, you don't even believe what the regular conspiracy people believe, that there's this secret cabal in a dark smoking room. You don't even believe that exists. Yet it's all planned and coordinated to keep the human being distracted so they don't do what they're supposed to do in life. Yes, that's what I believe. The entire reality is a conspiracy. And that's the only way the reality can be a conspiracy as a whole, as if no one's in on it. If there is a smoking room and dark figures decide, and dark figures put other secret societies and groups and dark clandestine forces in motion to do this and do that, then the whole world can't be a conspiracy, only what they're able to pull off, which would only be a very small amount of things compared to what we've seen. When the whole world is a conspiracy, and what's the point? Well, even if you're new here, I've said it a few times already. The point is to just, it's one sentence, to distract a real spiritual being, what they dumb down to call the human, so they lose touch with their spiritual nature, to keep that spiritual entity from doing what it's supposed to do in this reality system, in terms of understanding itself, its true nature, dropping baggage, doing what it's supposed to do, doing the work. It's all it cares about is one sentence, keeping a real being distracted from that. The entire dark reality, or we're now putting it as the plumber's ass crack that sits over the natural world, or however you, when people talk about reality overlays or whatever that is, I don't understand that horse shit, but I generally understand what they're saying. It's to keep, but see, the point of this presentation is even the calendar is perfectly strategically planned out for that same tactic. Everything is. We could talk about everything because it all relates to the same not nil goal. But the calendar is obvious. I've been noticing this recently about how perfectly planned out the professional sports is in coordination with the college. I'll talk about this in a second. But then you back up. It's like, well, the placement of these holidays and the days off and, okay, if I go search why Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Day is the day it is in February, I'm sure there's a whole backstory. Matt, that can be explained. I don't care what the backstory is. I don't care. It's all perfect, just so the human being doesn't crack, I guess, and keeps giving its negative energy to not milk systems and looshed harvesters. We don't know exactly how it works, but there's something here that draws or survives from our negative energy. The whole reality is structured to go watch your local news at 6 o'clock. Mine's with Yuki Washington, a guy that's been around Philadelphia for 35 or 40 years. Yuki Washington, he still looks like he's about 35. It's just fire on West Oak Lane. This person was run down by a hit and run drive. It's all negative. It's all, but they think they're helping out. They think they're providing the news. we know there's this loosh harvesting, whatever, I don't know where this term came from, but it's the most applicable term we might as well use. I don't love the term, but it works so hard, the reality itself, the ass crack, works so hard to get these emotions from us. Stress, fear, anxiety, worry, it must in some way need these energies. I mean, are you ever going to go, anybody new here? You ever going to walk around the corner at South Street and see George Bush there just sucking in loosh or something, just in the general air under a lightning bolt? No, you're never going to witness it. But if you witness how the whole society is structured, it must be that way because it works too hard to bring forth negative emotion and anxieties, etc. And all the 7 deadly sins, of course, go right along with it. Works too hard. It must need those things almost to survive. And backing up for a second, guys, this presentation, of course, by its lonesome would be insane. You can infer what the not nilk, or that's the general dark part of reality, is up to in all areas based on all the research we've done for 10 or 15 years. The sample size isn't just looking at the calendar, it's looking at what its goals and tactics are across the board. And then when you see its true nature, you can then apply it to the calendar. And you say, oh yeah, this calendar of holidays, and I didn't even get to the Humpty Dumpty part. Like, where did Halloween as a holiday even come from? Or whatever they call this holiday or that holiday. Where did it even come from? Why was it strategically placed on the calendar where it is? So most workers can maybe have a day off. Or is it a bridge holiday, just something exciting in the malls so people can get into the next season, so they can just have their life be one big blur after another, year after years go by, and they wake up on their deathbed and go, shit, is this a video game? Can I do a redo or a reset? Son of a bitch. And I did say wake up on your deathbed, but that wasn't a mistake. You can be on your deathbed for several days. You go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up before you're actually dead. That wasn't a mistake, nor was it an attempt to work in that scene from Caddyshack where Carl, Bill Murray, claims he was actually catting for the Dalai Lama in the Tibetan mountains. And the Dalai Lama, that cheap son of a bitch, is gonna stiff him. Hey, Lama, how about a little something for the effort? He's going to stiff me. Then the Lama approached Carl, looked deep into his eyes, and said to Carl, there'll be no money for you, but upon your death, you'll receive total consciousness. So I got that going for me, which is nice. But see, that's true. That's a truth drop in a ridiculous, absurd slapstick movie. The Lama didn't give Carl anything. He truly did stiff him for catting his round. He knew Carl was going right into those damn Bardos. He knew Carl wouldn't pick the right lights and the right turns inside the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and Carl be coming right back into another body and into another lifetime, this time heads greenkeeper at Bushwood instead of assistant greenskeeper. From a Buddhist perspective, that's moving up in the world. There's a damn truth drop in almost everything. What do you think the beginning of the Jeffersons is all about? Yeah, we're moving on. Matt, don't sing it. Please, God, don't sing it. 5 seconds. Yeah, we're moving on up to the east side. It ain't about freaking dry cleaners and what's her name, Florence, the damn house. It's not about that horse shit. Maybe it's Buddhist. Maybe he's moving on up. That's maybe George Jefferson is Carl coming back as a guy that owns 8 or 9 dry cleaning centers in Brooklyn and Lower Manhattan. That's the step up from assistant greenskeeper. But it's not about that. It's about Matt, you saying there's some sort of spiritual retrocausality language in the damn Jeffersons theme? I'm saying, yes, it's quite possible. If you take it that way, then it's there. That's all that matters. If you take it that way, then it's there. So you saying no matter how ridiculous the art or what the brand or flavor or genre of the art, if I get some sort of spiritual message, then it's really there. That's what your ass is saying to me? I'm sorry you haven't done the research we have over the last 10 or 15 years, and I apologize if this seems insane. But yes, that's what I'm saying. Almost all forms of art has a critical interpretation that goes along with it. A whole group of people that are in business to provide critical interpretation for that art. You know how many treatises have been written in YouTube videos and presentations on the last 25 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey? There's like 1 million pages written on the possible different interpretations of it. The interpretations of The Matrix itself, the movie The Matrix, interpretations of Robert Frost, 2 paths diverged in a perverted woods, and I took the one less chosen by George Michael. Somebody sent me a book. I referenced the book. There's a whole book that talks you about that tells you about the interpretation of a simple 4-stanza poem. Somebody sent it to me in the mail, but there's more critical interpretation written about works of art in many cases than the work of art itself. To be or not to be is a very simple line. There's been about 400,000 words written as to how to interpret that simple line, and it might not be as simple as it seems. So we're not allowed to join into the mix. We're not allowed to join the party. If there's all these different interpretations on works of art, poetry, song, symphonies, movies, whatever it may be, we can join in. We can take the spiritual interpretation. Why is our interpretation less valid? Why is the interpretation of everyone else always trying to get to what the writer really meant or the art? Why can't the writer or the artist ever say what they really meant? Isn't that a coincidence in this reality? Nobody really knew what Kubrick meant by this. Nobody really knew what Well, we don't really know what Robert Frost meant. Well, why not? Well, that's part of the art. Well, yeah, it is part of the art. So the artist stays quiet and shuts up so people can take away different interpretations, even the spiritual interpretation. What a coincidence that in so many critically acclaimed works of art, not just movies, poetry, books, whatever it may be, we don't know what the writer or creator intended. Doesn't that seem that it comes up a little bit too much? See, that opens the door for the highest level, potentially, interpretation of it, the spiritual interpretation. In most of these cases, okay, maybe the artist or the writer wants to create mystery, but in like every single case, don't you see it comes up too often? Like for these 500 works that people analyze over decades and centuries, the writer of for half couldn't just come forth and fucking say what he meant, or she? Is that so impossible? See, again, if the writer stays quiet, that leaves room for the spiritual interpretation. If the end of 2001, Kubrick said, hey, I want to tell everybody what I meant by that. I'm tired of all the confusion. I'm tired of people bitching and complaining. I sit in the movie theater real quiet with a hood up to see what people are saying. I like to do that, Kubrick said. And people come out and they say, I love that movie, but I can't stand how weird the last 25 minutes are and the damn I'm going to just tell everybody, Kubrick said, what I meant by that. The meaning of the last 25 minutes, Kubrick said, I want more McDonald's restaurants built across North America. That's the interpretation of the last 25 minutes. They don't ever tell you. That opens up the spiritual interpretation. Okay, back to the calendar. I also said the calendar was a Humpty Dumpty. And that's Humpty Dumpty is also the same as a stuffed Lenin. It's something, stuffed Lenin. It's something that's artificially carried through time. That would not normally, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the little songs and things that we all know as kids and just would have been forgotten about a day after it was created. It's just not good enough to carry through time, whether it be decades or centuries or even longer. So Halloween's the same way, but Halloween's just one example. They all tend to work this way. They're Humpty Dumpties. It shouldn't exist in the gigantic format it exists. Halloween is only big to us because it was to our older brothers or cousins. And it's only big to them because it was to their parents. Well, how did it start? It's completely artificial. You go to research it. Halloween, the tradition, I'm reading now, originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. I'm not sorry if I mispronounced. Samhain. When people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. Soon, All Saints' Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. I'm Celtic. Trust me, I've butchered things in the past in terms of pronunciation. I'm sure that is absolutely the worst I've ever done. The ancient Celtic just don't roll off my lips. So might as well make it even worse. Samhain. The evening before was known as All Hallows' Eve and later Halloween. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like what? Pootie Tang Award. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns. What kind of jackass would read this that didn't know that? Talk about stating the obvious. Sorry. It's like, we have the same theme again. Ancient, like Saturnalia to Christmas. Ancient pagan tradition that then the Catholic Church takes over. Matt, it's the same theme that plays out again? Again, with us? They're doing it to us again. And then they incorporate All Saints' Day. Oh, come on, man. It's so big because it was intended by the what, at least a system inside Not Nil control structure. It was intended to be big on its own. Like, people just think this stuff came up naturally or organically. A certain town or two or three might be dressing up and doing certain things. Guess what? It would have stopped there. Whatever was happening in ancient Celtic would have never made it across the Atlantic. It would have sunk in the rowboat. It's meant to be big because it's artificial. It gives Not Nil contentions away. People just think, oh, no, Matt, it must have spread. One town saw how much fun the other town was having, and then they wanted to do it too. Oh, sure. That's what it was. Anyway, the whole reality, guys, to us is because why is it so artificial to us, Matt? Because we're separating from it. Because we're moving away from its resonance and frequency, and we look back at it, and it's like stepping out of a Galaga arcade game and looking back and saying, I believe that horse shit with that damn starship shooting up at the flying bees coming down to sting me or whatever. It's like stepping out of Donkey Kong and looking back at it and going, well, yeah, I can't believe I believed that horse shit. That was nothing but some little dude jumping barrels. That's why it's so ridiculous to us, because we're successfully separating from it. We're C.S. Lewis great divorcing. What part? We're divorcing the reality itself at the metaphysical level. It's the best news of all time. If I just went up to somebody on the street and say, hey, I can show you how to separate and divorce yourself from the entire reality, the dude should turn around and say, hey, dude, you show me that. That would be out of sight. It is out of sight what we're doing. Okay, so the holidays, the days off, the bridge holidays, the things to look forward to, all strategically placed on the calendar, so your average Lenin-style worker can just make it through the year. And they're given a little time off at the end of the year, a celebration, a serious ball drop, and then they're supposed to be all happy. And then they have their New Year's resolutions, which they break within 5 minutes. And then they start another year of being fogged over and not knowing what they're supposed to do in life. But it's not just holidays on its own wouldn't accomplish Not Nil goals. All of professional sports, you can see how that fits in as well. And college sports, of course. And although, as I'm making this presentation, it would seem like, well, Matt, that only works perfectly if somebody's a fan of all sports. I hear you, but most people that are sports fans do pay a lot of attention to 2 or 3 or even 4 other sports besides, the NFL. A gigantic Eagles fan, I assure you, watches Sixers and Phillies and Flyers. They might not watch the soccer, the Galaxy, but most sports fans, watch 4 or 5 others if you include, say, college football as the 5th. So just as here comes the winter months, or it's getting cold, the fall, the leaves are dropping. Then the reality gives the ultimate Coliseum gladiatorial games. It gives the world, or at least North America, the NFL. I'm sure other parts of the world, I don't know how you're structured, your sports teams, but it's going to be similar because everybody's under the auspices of the Not Nil stinky umbrella. So at least let me just talk about all that I know here in North America and NFL football related to the other sports that are big in the United States. So weather starts getting cold, people inside more. They give you, Commodus, Joaquin Phoenix, Commodus gives you the NFL and college football. When college football comes to an end, you have the Army-Navy game just played by itself after all the other college football shuts down. See, there you go right there. The Army-Navy, if people that crave college football and want that one more game are given that one more game, Army-Navy, okay, the ultimate Not Nil game given to the masses. Then you just have about 10 days or so before the bowls start. All the horseshit bowls start in college football. All this time you're still getting the NFL every Monday night, every Thursday night, sometimes now on Saturday, Christmas Eve, Sunday. The NFL can come 4 days a week. So then the bullshit bowls start. The Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, and my favorite, the Jimmy Kimmel. What a loser. Jimmy Kimmel Los Angeles. Let me get it out. The Jimmy Kimmel Los Angeles Bowl. If I was a star player for Kansas State or whoever played in that horseshit bowl, I'd just rip the patch off and say, I ain't going to that bowl. You're not going to play in the bowl because you think you're going to go be drafted to the NFL or you're going into the transfer portal? No, neither of those. I just refuse to play in any bowl that bears the name of a loser like Jimmy Kimmel. They should have had, the entire team should have sat out. But the point is all these horseshit bowls. Then you get into the major bowls, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, then the playoffs. And just when it's about to wind down, what do they give you? Then they give you the NFL playoffs. So then that gets you through the real nasty cold winter months when nobody goes out and does anything. They're so desperate to drag it along because they're running out or they've run out of games that they push the Super Bowl for 2 weeks. That keeps, especially people in Philadelphia, just sports talk radio. You can just talk and bitch about it and what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. And they just talk and talk and talk about sports for 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. Then after the Super Bowl, you go, oh no, what do I do? And when the entire South, and I know that NASCAR does not have the fan base, but I'm just telling you that this is the way it's structured. They have other ways to entertain or distract now. Social media, the VR headsets will be coming in 3 or 4 years. But just when, at least in the past, the entire South is ready to pull their entire whatever follicles they have left on their head, then boom, NASCAR starts up again in the middle of February with the Daytona 500 pre-races or the Clash. You know, you're ready to just go crazy because the winter's in, and then the NASCAR comes to save the day. And I understand, well, what if somebody doesn't watch NASCAR? I hear you. But they're going to structure it the best way they can it is literally, remember the bread part of the bread and circuses. It's about keeping the bellies full in this way via entertainment. And you can see when you back up from it how artificial. It starts with the calendar and the dates and the holidays and the days off. And then you can see how the professional sports teams are structured, even what they did with World Cup over the holidays. Of course, it's all by design. And then what would the additional layers be? I haven't thought about it. That aid in the distraction to just get a person to float 1 year to the next and go through their life in a complete haze and a fog. And in all its presentations, of course, it is out to destroy what was once good, or, I know many people here are so anti-sports, but pure sports at the amateur level and the training and the accomplishments, that is not such a horrible thing if it's close to its pure form. There is no sport anymore that's close to its pure form. Of course, everything has been adulterized and bastardized by not-nilk systems. So they want to destroy it, but they have to be very careful because all they can do is transform it. They have to be careful, like with the NFL, where, flag football, receivers go across the middle, and oh boy, you hit the receiver a little bit too close to the helmet. Oh, that's 15 yards, unnecessary roughness. There's a softening of the NFL that's been going on for 15 years or so. And a little bit of it is warranted. It had gotten very violent with blows to the head, and that's a little bit too much for anybody, okay? But it's gone. The pendulum has swung a little bit too far the other way. But they go to transform it. They cannot destroy it outright because it's a not-nilk system or presentation that's too important in how they control the masses. But through its transformation, it is destroyed when you compare it to what the pure sport really could be if it was allowed to be pure sport, or potentially what existed before anybody that's 30 or 40 years old. Remember what existed maybe in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. So it's a ruination, but it's a very slow transformation. So the sport that exists in 2023 that's the best people can do, and everybody's trying. Matt, what do you think? The commissioner of the NFL doesn't want to put out the best possible sport and the best possible product? That's exactly what I think. But the commission of the NFL, they're not even in on it. They're on the Matt, what are you saying? All these people aren't in on it, yet they're doing Satan's work, or as a Christian would say, or the not-nilk's work without being in on it. They're on a frequency or download of some kind. They push forth what the not-nilk is out to do to what they call the human being without being aware of exactly why they're doing it. They're not getting cue cards. They're not rubbing their hands together like Despicable Me saying in a sinister format, oh, I can't wait to get these people. They actually believe they're trying their very best. But in all these sports, again, they can't ruin it outright because the sport is too important. So it's transformed into something that people believe is the very best product that can be put on the field, but it is absolute horseshit when compared to what pure sport could be, or what even was available to a sports fan 40 or 50 years ago. All right, I'm going to change it up a bit and read part of an email from Sam here, and it's regarding what happened that we've talked about on Monday Night Football. On Monday Night Football, there was a player that experienced a cardiac arrest, potentially could have been dead for a period of time on the field, I think still in the hospital on respirator, somber tone in the stadium. The announcers didn't know what to do for over an hour. Talked about in other videos how it was such a very strange and bizarre presentation across the board. Now, Sam adds to this, very interesting, saying the Monday Night Football, he calls it a presentation. We've called it that. Whether the guy's really in a hospital bed or not, still the word presentation is apt. He says, they say people who get PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder associated with being in a combat zone, for example, which was once called shell shock, the term that came out of World War I. People who get PTSD aren't the ones who saw the worst things in war, but rather the people who weren't prepared emotionally for what they experienced, some say. Whether, we'll just say, I'm reading his email, a presentation or not, whatever elements were real, it doesn't matter. He's saying this event, or what people witnessed on Monday Night Football, served to give everybody watching PTSD. It served to give everyone watching PTSD. He's saying, I was watching with my wife, doing a puzzle on the floor in the living room, blah, 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 blah. He said, I swear he had a feeling of illness that came over him when they showed the player get up and then just fall down. He says he felt like a zombie for 2 straight days. He said he still had terrible congestion he thinks was associated with seeing this. His wife said people at the corporate job all felt weird and they were kind of sick and people talking, and it was, he doesn't say it here, I don't believe, but it's almost the way I interpreted reading this email. It's like a spell was cast to shock or to put people into PTSD. And I want to explore this email got me thinking about a conversation I had with my dad, general observations about separating from reality, and I want to talk about this for a few minutes here. This is very interesting the way he put this. Okay, what have we said, or we generally agree, nobody's come to me and said, Matt, that's total horseshit. What have we said about the old guard, old souls, Jedis, people that have been doing this 10 plus years? We have commonalities. Our armor is on, and it's polished, and it's good, and it's tight. We've dropped veils. We're more lucid than the person next to us. Okay, we have these commonalities. So you could say, for lack of a better words, whether it's related to the Monday Night Football or whatever it may be, even it seems like a spell is cast in some way. Okay, lack of better words. That's accurate to some degree, but it doesn't work on those in the front few rows of the classroom. So I don't know Sam here, but it would surprise me if he had put in all the time that some of us has the same armor, dropped all the veils. And he would say, Matt, in terms of the progression in this regard and seeing through the trick, I'm the same as you and some of what you call old guard. I would be surprised, because he was very honest in the email, and he said it was meant to cause a PTSD, no matter what elements were real or what elements were cake in a lake. He said it affected me. He's very honest. It affected me, and people were traumatized. I was So in other words, let me just tell you, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I think a lot of the old guard would be like this. When I saw it, whatever I'm talking about now, whatever it might be, didn't affect me at all. I simply didn't care. And let me bring in a conversation I had with my father related to this. Now, that sounds cold and callous, But there's a reason for that. It's not cold and callous. There's a reason. I'm going to try to justify why I had that, what seeming to be cold and callous response to what I saw last Monday night. That event that put tens and hundreds of millions of people into trauma. I didn't care. It didn't bother me. It was like, continue the game. Let's get on with it. So I'm having a conversation. My father, of course, is somebody that I've talked about being, let's just say, in the nicest way possible. How do you put it in the nicest way possible? Let's just say on the download. Whatever the news says he should be or act or behave or think is what he's going to behave or think. So, of course, he's traumatized. We start talking about it. Did you see this on Monday? Yes, I saw it. Wasn't it horrible? And don't you feel for his family and this and that? And again, this sounds really bad and callous, but give me a few minutes to explain, guys, or to justify it. And of course, I take the opposite. I'm like, no, I didn't feel that way. And then I take the tact that, well, it's amazing it doesn't happen every week. 300-pound players that can squat 600, 700 pounds running at full speed. Some of these big guys run a 4 or 5, fat, smashing into each other, head and neck first. I was talking to my father saying, I can't believe it doesn't happen once a year. It's incredible. In other words, I saw it it's not so traumatic. It's so amazing. It should almost be celebrated that it hasn't happened and the sport has been so safe for so long. And he's saying, well, people are so traumatized, and it was so because it hasn't happened. People were so shocked by what they saw. But ultimately, it worked into, Matt, again, you're not the person that, the son that I recognize from decades ago. You're callous. And see, again, every time we have these deep level conversations where we completely differ with the person we're talking to about what Not Nilk Reality is trying to put forth, we do come across as very cold and callous. But the reason for that is I was talking to Greg, and he thought the same as me. He's like, I didn't care, didn't think anything. And we in talking with Greg, we kind of came up with the closer that the person is to being inside a Not Nilk system, because they're part of a Not Nilk system, which is to trick the entire reality, to trick real spiritual human beings. We don't care in any way about the welfare of people that are so close to Not Nilk systems. So we said, what if a certain politician, a very prominent politician, was at a podium and had a similar type, a cardiac event for would we care? No, we wouldn't care at all. No emotion would go out for the person or the family. We kind of said, well, if they're right there, right in the heart of participating in fostering Not Nilk systems. And someone said, well, Matt, the defensive backs for certain, they don't know how they're working for Not Nilk. They're just trying to feed their families. I hear you. But that's the only way I can explain it. So it was very callous to my father hearing this. And he's like, you're just as, he was thinking, you're just as callous as I believed you to be. Because for some reasons, when we get into these debates, see, the whole world that's on the download is supposed to be traumatized, and the best wish is supposed to go out to the family. And we're not taking the bait. We're not under the spell. So we come across to people like my father or the NPC type as callous. But he doesn't know who I'm the opposite of callous. He never experiences, and I was thinking about this, he never experiences who I truly am. I'll give you, it's not the greatest example, but it just came into my mind. I was talking to Greg about this. This has happened to me, I don't know, twice in the last 2 years. It never happened to me before that. A few weeks ago, someone had taken out its back legs, completely crushed the back legs, and it's so sad. And it's trying to crawl across the road in the middle of the road. I mean, you want to cry, you want to just help it. There's only one thing you can do. Immediately found a driveway to turn around to go back and crush it, of course. I don't mean, there's no reason I have to say this, but the squirrel would suffer for 10 to 15 hours. No squirrel can live with its back legs crushed. If anybody thinking what I'm about to describe is not a mercy event, of course it is. I'm doing it because I feel horrible. I completely want what's best for the squirrel. The reason I put out mosquitoes or bugs, so I go back, the thing's crawling across the road by its front legs, an inch and would another car would have hit it in a matter of minutes anyway. It was hard, so I crush it. You feel bad, but you feel you did what you had to do, and that's a bad example. But in terms of, and it's not just an affinity to animals. If the little old lady is broken down on the side of the road in the middle of the rain, I'm going to stop and I'm going to help her, whatever. I'm going to do what I need to do. So I'm the opposite of callous in terms of emotionally and that sort of thing. I've evolved tremendously versus the like, wasn't a monster when I, worked for the big insurance company, but I was just baseless or again, like there was no depth to me, as I was completely in the middle of not nil corporate life, like as I've described it, just flipping through brochures to see what would be a cool car to lease next. I mean, that's all. There was nothing to me. I mentioned throw the robin's eggs in the door, throw them in the woods, and not think anything about it. I've kept my garage door open for almost a month because a bird had put the nest in eggs, and what am I going to do? Then rain's coming in, I can't close it. So for some reason, though, we know what we've evolved into and how much better we've gotten in this regard. But whenever we have an interaction with somebody that's under the not nil download, in this case, like my father talking about the traumatic event that was witnessed on Monday night, he does not have any idea, never sees who I've truly become. Every time we interact, it's on like a not nil playing field where he walks away saying, "Boy, I cannot believe how callous my son is. He didn't care one bit. He wasn't affected in any way of what he saw." And the reason we weren't, whether maybe I was wrong about if you're closer to not nil systems, then I'm going to care less and less. It might be as simple as the not nil presentation was what Sam said here, was getting everybody into a situation of PTSD, of being traumatized, of worry. And we don't take that bait. We don't, that spell doesn't work on us. So, I saw it happen and I was like, okay, well, start the game up again. Play it. What, Matt? I thought you didn't watch. It was running. The Rose Bowl I watched Penn State in the Rose Bowl, went right into that game. It was just still kind of on. I was like, well, get him off and play the game. I didn't care one bit. And I don't know. And I don't think I described it very well. And even many of you were saying, that's just callous, Matt. No, it was meant to get a certain reaction from me. And I believe because my armor is such, I have dropped veils, whatever its presentation is, it's not going to work on me. If that means I come across as callous, then I come across as callous. That's the best way I can describe it. One follow-up on the Free Voice video of last Sunday that I didn't mention, where we're talking about what was on television the morning of, in 2001, the big event, and the Bryant Gumbel cooking show. And it looked like just seconds before the job application was submitted to the 7-Eleven, and they go to break on CBS this morning, and like the exact second the event begun, and I highlighted that Bryant Gumbel awkwardly tries to drink down his red wine. And then Matt emailed me, he's like, no, it was sangria. And you know what the root of that word is? Sangria, the root of the sangria, which is a drink, the root of the word is blood. So technically, Bryant was okay. We covered this in the Free Voice video, but I didn't mention. Maybe it's just interesting or kind of funny to think this through. Bryant kind of disappeared. He disappeared. Not the next day. He wasn't whisked off in a black van or anything. But it says that it wasn't even a full year where he stepped down, or I don't know if he was fired, but he just went away from television. And does the possibility exist that we've talked about it? Is everybody in Hollywood on every TV show and every single person that's ever been on Saturday Night Live, they're all on the same download and they're not as real as us? No, I think there's real people mixed in all over the place. And in some real people that get caught up under the dragon's wing, when they start out, could, for lack of better words, you know what I'm saying, could be as real as you and me. And maybe Bryant Bryant Gumbel is one of these people. Who knows? This is just fun fiction. We're just playing out here. So maybe usually they can't go away, right? We've talked about stalled century. If he's participating in stalled century, they'd still have him. They'd have him on TV for another 20 years. He could never get out. But we talk about people not being able to get out, but he went away. It's like maybe he just had an epiphany, like a real person. He hadn't gone. Maybe he had never made any real contract with the not Nilk or the chief commander, as Bob Dylan put it. And maybe he's just we put two and two together. Just go with this. I've been thinking it through. I don't know who Bryant Gumbel is. And Matt, why are you giving Bryant Gumbel the benefit of the doubt? I'm not. It's possible. Seemed like a decent guy. Maybe he's like, oh my good. Maybe he didn't, he knew not, Matt, he knew exactly what he was. Okay, maybe he did, but just go with it. Maybe he didn't. And like looking back on it, he's like, and he knew the relationship between the root words sangria and blood. He's like, I was drinking blood. And then maybe he did spend too much time on YouTube and he's like, oh my goodness, what was I participating in without even knowing? Or maybe he was on the download. Maybe when we say part of the Matrix, or even I've said I was a child of the Matrix when I was flipping through what, the car or car lease automobile brochures and just a child of the Matrix. We all at some point were a child of the Matrix until we, as we say, woke up. Maybe just said, I can't do this anymore. If you don't go back, Bryant, you'll never work in this town again. I don't know. He never did. Isn't that weird? He just kind of went away. Maybe he is flipping burgers somewhere, or like if you pretend you go into that town like Sling Blade, you'll go to the crispy fries or whatever, and Bryant will come to the window and he'll say, what you got in there that's any good? And Bryant says, oh, French fries are good. I'll take the big ones. Maybe it'll be Bryant offering somebody like Sling Blade in some small town across America the biggie fries. I don't know. I just thought it was awful strange. I didn't mention the free voice video that the guy just went away. And one possibility is he went, oh my goodness, what the heck am I involved in? You'll never work in this town again, Bryant. You'll be pushing fries to Sling Blade. I don't care. I'm out of here. I just spent a few minutes looking into it. Somebody was screaming, Matt, just because you don't know where Bryant Gumbel went doesn't mean he just went away. He did this thing called Real Sports, but it's still a little bit strange on HBO. This guy, if you're over 45 years old, this guy was on every morning. He was on NBC and CBS for 20 years straight. This was a very, like Katie Couric, extremely well recognized. And then shortly after the 2001 event, he did just kind of go away, which is the basis of what I've been talking about the last few minutes. But then, okay, I guess this kind of proves it. You can't get out of the dragon's wing. They brought him back to do these Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. Why do I keep saying Gumbel, not Gumball? But the point is, why did they bring him back? All sorts of controversies here listed once he's brought back. All sorts of running his mouth. Right here in Wikipedia, reading it right from Wikipedia. It says racist remarks, controversy, calling out this person, running. It's like, so maybe he did try to go away and they said, no, Bryant, you need to come in. Is this the chief commander's office? No, this is a satellite office of the chief commander. You're going to do this thing called Real Sports, and we're going to put you back in the limelight to a degree, 95% less than what you were, but then you're going to work for us. You're going to say this stupid shit, and you're going to make these remarks, and there's going to be controversy surrounding you. That's what you have to do to pay us back after you tried to get out from under the dragon's wing. Controversy, Bryant says. Is this going to be Anthony Weiner level controversy? No, it's not going to be Anthony Weiner level controversy, but you're going to have to say this about the Olympics. And yeah, there's some stuff here, guys, that maybe he did try to get out, but they brought him back, and then somebody sat him down apparently and says, you're going to say this stuff for us. You're going to work for Not Nilk. That's what happened. Bryant, if you're listening, I really would like to come to your window one day and eat your fries. Thanks.